January 31st, 1945, Clark Air Base, Philippines. Under the hammering midday sun, Major Frank T. McCoy approached an aircraft that would change everything he thought he knew about Japanese aviation. McCoy was an expert. He'd spent 3 years examining enemy wreckage across the Pacific. He'd crawled through burned-out Zeros and dissected crashed bombers, but nothing prepared him for this. Before him sat a Mitsubishi G4M bomber, tail number 76312, in pristine condition. It wasn't wreckage, it was a complete, functional aircraft, seemingly abandoned during the chaotic Japanese retreat. The distinctive cigar-shaped fuselage spanned nearly 20 meters. McCoy climbed onto the wing, his fingers finding the inspection panel latches. They opened easily. What he saw inside made him freeze. The fuel tanks were completely, utterly exposed. No self-sealing material, no protective armor, no fire suppression systems. Just a thin 2-millimeter layer of aluminum, barely thicker than a soda can, separating thousands of liters of high-octane fuel from the outside world. He opened panel after panel. Every fuel cell showed the same terrifying absence of protection. This wasn't damage or a field modification. This was the original design. The bomber's nickname, the Flying Cigar, suddenly made perfect, chilling sense. So did the catastrophic loss rates Japanese bomber crews had suffered since 1942. This was physical evidence of a fundamentally different calculus of war, one that valued operational range far more than crew survival. The story of this fatal compromise began in Tokyo, 1937. The Imperial Japanese Navy issued specifications that seemed impossible, a land-based bomber that could carry 800 kilograms of bombs over a combat radius of 2,400 kilometers. No existing bomber in the world could do this. American bombers like the B-17 prioritized protection. British bombers focused on payload. The Japanese Navy wanted one thing above all: range. Mitsubishi's lead designer, Kiro Honjo, faced a brutal problem: weight. To meet the range requirement, the aircraft would need to carry nearly its own empty weight in fuel. Something had to be sacrificed. Western air forces had already made their choice. Self-sealing fuel tanks were mandatory. This technology used layers of rubber that swelled when punctured, sealing holes and preventing fuel leaks. The problem was it added over 500 kilograms. With a protection system installed, the aircraft couldn't meet the range requirement. Honjo made the decision that would define the aircraft's legacy. He eliminated protection entirely. Every gram of weight would be devoted to fuel and engines. Crew survival was sacrificed for operational capability. The prototype first flew in October 1939, and the results were extraordinary. The Navy was delighted and production began immediately, but veteran pilots noticed the lack of protection right away. They called it the hamaki, the cigar. They knew this was a bomber designed to reach distant targets, not to survive determined opposition. On December 8, 1941, hours after Pearl Harbor, G4M bombers took off from Formosa, targeting Clark Field in the Philippines. They achieved total surprise, destroying most of America's B-17s and fighters on the ground. The G4Ms escaped without a scratch, having struck from over 700 kilometers away, a distance no American bomber could match. 2 days later, they sank the British battleship HMS Prince of Wales and battlecruiser HMS Repulse, the first time in history capital ships were sunk solely by air attack on the open sea. Winston Churchill later wrote, "In all the war, I never received a more direct shock." Throughout early 1942, the G4M, nicknamed Betty by the Allies, seemed omnipresent, striking targets from Darwin to Port Moresby. Its incredible range meant Allied forces couldn't strike back. But this advantage depended entirely on minimal opposition. As American fighter strength and pilot skill improved, everything was about to change. August 8, 1942, 23 G4M bombers headed for Guadalcanal. This time, American intelligence had a warning. Marine F-4F Wildcat fighters intercepted them. What followed was a massacre. Captain Marion Carl, a Marine pilot, described it. "We came at them from high and ahead. The moment our rounds hit their wings, they just exploded. I'd never seen anything like it. One burst, and the whole aircraft became a fireball." In that single battle, 18 of the 23 Betty bombers were destroyed. The American pilots all observed the same terrifying flaw. The Betty would ignite with minimal hits. A few rounds anywhere in the wing were enough. The plane earned grim nicknames: Flying Cigar, One Shot Lighter, and Flying Zippo. The tactical situation had completely reversed. Between August and October 1942, over 100 Bettys were destroyed over Guadalcanal alone. Lieutenant Fujio Yu, a Betty pilot, wrote to his family, "We call our aircraft the Cigar. Every mission we joke about who will light up today, but it's not really a joke. Yesterday, Tanaka's aircraft took a single hit. We watched it fall. 7 men, I knew every one of them." Unlike American crews, whose planes were designed to bring them home, Japanese crews knew survival depended on not getting hit at all. You either returned untouched, or you didn't return. Some crews tried makeshift solutions, stuffing rubber matting near the fuel tanks or hanging their flak vests in the wings. It was useless. By mid-1943, the survival rate for a Betty crew on the Rabaul-Guadalcanal run dropped below 30% for completing a 30-mission tour. The Betty's vulnerability was underscored by 2 symbolic moments. On April 18, 1943, Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto, the architect of Pearl Harbor, was flying in a G4M when American P-38 Lightnings intercepted him. First, Lieutenant Rex Barber fired a long burst into the wing. The bomber immediately caught fire. Yamamoto and his entire staff died in the crash. The unprotected fuel tanks that gave the Betty its range also ensured that even Japan's most important military leader couldn't be safely transported. Then, on March 21, 1945, 18 Bettys carrying Oka rocket bombs, essentially manned missiles, set out to strike American ships off Okinawa. The heavy, drag-inducing Okas made the bombers slow and clumsy. Hellcat fighters intercepted the formation and systematically destroyed every single one. Not one Betty survived to release its weapon. 137 bomber crewmen and 15 Oka pilots died in a mission that was a complete failure. Major McCoy's examination at Clark Field provided the final technical confirmation. A B-17 Flying Fortress weighed more than twice as much as a Betty, with much of that extra weight devoted to crew protection. The B-17's combat loss rate in the Pacific was about 3% per mission. The Betty's, in contested airspace, exceeded 15%. Japan soon faced a critical aircrew shortage. The training pipeline couldn't replace the losses. Inexperienced crews flying aircraft with no margin for error died even faster. The final symbolic mission occurred on August 19, 1945. 2 white-painted G4Ms carried the Japanese surrender delegation to Aishima. The bomber that had opened the Pacific War now concluded it, carrying the delegation of defeat. Of the 2,400 Bettys produced, about half were destroyed in combat, consumed by the fires their design made inevitable. An estimated 10,000 Japanese airmen died flying them. The unprotected fuel tanks weren't an error, they were a deliberate choice. A choice that prioritized capability over survivability. American forces designed aircraft to bring crews home. The B-17 and B-24 had protection systems that saved lives, allowing crews to survive, gain experience, and strengthen the force. Japanese forces designed an aircraft to reach its target, regardless of the cost. The Betty could strike at distances no other bomber could match, but its crews were expendable. In the end, the nation that valued its crews built a force that endured. The nation that accepted catastrophic casualties built a force that destroyed itself. Major McCoy's analysis of tail, number 763/12, proved a fatal calculation. The Betty story isn't just about engineering, it's about the fundamental values nations bring to war, and the verdict of that choice written in the wreckage of 1-200 bombers scattered across the Pacific floor, each one a tomb for 7 men whose lives were traded for range. Thank you for watching. If you found this story interesting, please like and subscribe for more chapters from history.